Okay. Good morning. My name is Anthea Grant, and I am a Master of Historic Preservation and Conservation student at the University of Florida. Today is Wednesday, 9th of July, 2025, and I am here at the Cocoa Research Center on the UB campus, and I am meeting and speaking with Miss Lee Lum, who is the project manager here, and I'm going to ask her to introduce herself.
Good morning. Thank you, Anthea, for bringing attention to cocoa, for allowing Cocoa Research Center to be part of your thesis research. My name is Karen Lee Lum. I manage cocoa-based research and development projects for Cocoa Research Center on the campus.
Okay.
My particular project is called Recreate Cocoa Communities, and it is a grant that is provided through the European Union and the IDB Lab, managed through the Ministry of Planning and Development. The focus of the project, the first of its kind for us, is in Lupino La Pastora. The intent is to work with cocoa-based communities, historically cocoa-based communities across Trinidad and Tobago, to revitalize the industry that has suffered many setbacks over the years for different reasons. I'll just give a few brief reasons as we go along. But to revitalize cocoa in the community sustainably. So the project essentially is a social sustainability project. So it falls in line with the thesis work that you're doing, because our objective is to work with the farmers in the community, first as the key value chain operators within the community, to improve their production, to help manage their risks, and to improve their value and the revenue that they will earn through cocoa within their community. And then to lay upon that within the community all the other support activities that go alongside, that spawn additional interest within the community. Tourism in Lupino, for example, it is a historic site, Count Lupino. To look at the historic and other community activities that cocoa is the nucleus or the impetus for within the community. We are also, to a lesser extent, looking at the cultural aspects. We want to build through the community and the ministry, the government, community development and trade and tourism, all the activities that allow the community to thrive sustainably, to be aware of the climate impacts, to build resilience within the community, and to protect the environment, of course.
And how are you getting about, what is your plan to incorporate all of these projects, these goals and incentives in the community? How do you plan to extrapolate all of those things into your project?
Okay, so our project is now almost 8 months along. So the end date on the project is the 15th of October. We began in July of 2024. We have done already a lot of outreach work with the farming community. So we've gone to the farms, we've collected leaf samples to do DNA so that we understand the historic aspects of the trees that exist on some of the farms, and altogether we've sampled from about 25 different farms within Lupino La Pastora. So we have DNA analysis of some of the relic trees on those farms, and that allows not only for visibility but for marketing. The other thing that we've done is collect soil samples from most of these farms as well, so that we can support the farmers in improving their production. And the most important ongoing activity is what we call the GAIAP and the Farmer Field School, as a very social community-based activities where the farmers and the other members of the community get together to work on each other's estates and farms. So it is a rotation. So we decide that we're going to prune trees and we're going to tackle 5 trees over a week, and we rotate from farm to farm. We're going to fertilize, we're going to harvest. It is a very community-centric activity. So the GAIAP is ongoing. The other aspect in relation to building community is the historic aspect and sharing the history of cocoa with the schools. Last week, the 27th, we went to the primary school in Lupino, La Pastora, and we met with the children and we shared with them cocoa and the history of cocoa in Lupino. We introduced them to the fruit itself. They tasted chocolate because the Cocoa Research Center also produces its own 75% fine flavor cocoa chocolate. And the final aspect is the aspect that we are now kind of rounding up and finishing, which is the social sustainability aspect. We're looking at all the other value chain players in the community, transportation, the police, the community activities, the schools, the churches, the mom and pop shops, the transportation, the other farmers within the community, that all feed into each other to produce what is a strong, sustainable unit.
Yeah. That is really amazing. I'm especially excited about the project with the farmers helping each other. I think that it's really fosters, a greater productivity, but also brotherhood, if you would. And I think that is really important because it takes away from the competitive nature of farming. And so it's a holistic approach to really building the community. And what about things like a festival, like having, I know in Peru, I believe, they're like a big cocoa producing country, but they also focus heavily on the intangible. And every year they have their conferences with dancers and, their culture at these festivals. Is that something that you thought about in your project or anything close to?
Okay, so the approach that we take for business in Lupino is not so much that the GAIAP supports competition, but co-petition. We are competing, but cooperating. So the co represents cooperation, and petition means that we recognize that we are competing against each other, but we're not enemies, right? Okay. Lupino is a community that was started in 1806, if I am not mistaken, with Count Lupino, who came to Trinidad from Haiti. And he was looking for lands where he could start farming. And cocoa was one of the things that he wanted to farm. So it was a traditional community based with labor through the unfortunate slave trade. After emancipation, the community continued to grow cocoa and produce cocoa, and with it, the traditions from the indigenous peoples of that community at the time. So not only the Africans and some of the other indigenous people that came into the community, but the Amerindians and Caribs that lived in the community at the time in the 1800s. So Lupino has a number of cultural festivals that they host over the course of a year. Some of them are historically based, so they're time sensitive, and then some of them relate to the actual chocolate and recognizing cocoa and chocolate globally. So the 7th of July is World Chocolate Day, so they had some celebrations. The 2nd of October is World Cocoa Day, so they do more celebrations. And then within the community, they also have their what is traditional as well, like May fiestas at the beginning of the spring they have that are their community, but there's some of them are spawned from the Roman Catholic influence.
What about outsiders coming in, or is it just
Oh no,
confined to the community?
No, not at all.
Okay.
The historic site at Lupino, Count Lupino's house, that is right adjacent to the community center and the primary school, is a tourist location. So there are constant flows of tourists that are from abroad, plus the overseas, plus the local tourism.
Okay.
There's a river that runs at the back of the house, and that is also attracts local tourism almost 24/7.
Okay. Oh, that's great.
So
I thought it was just like limited to the community,
no,
but it's
not
free.
at all. Not at all.
Okay, and of course, parang.
Parang, that is seasonal as well, the last quarter of the year, because that again is an indigenous cocoa payol. If you know the term, it's a strong cocoa payol experience.
Yeah.
So parang, there's a strong culture of the food of the area that is related to Christmas. Okay. So and the Latin or the Venezuelan influence of pastel and pancha creme and those other specialized foods.
Yeah.
And that actually allows me to segue into the other community activities that we are supporting in our way. And that is the tourism-based activities, the bed and breakfast, the restaurants and the food businesses, the production of treats.
I myself bought a bottle of wine, chocolate wine, for the first time I saw that. So.
Of course, and then
all
the other local treats that we do.
So do they do their own marketing?
They do. Some of the residents of the community. I don't believe there's any one co-op or cooperative that works within the community, because there's a very formalized structure. What they do have is cooperation. So during the COVID lockdown period, 5 or 7 members of the community formed what was a small informal group where they identified their homes as places where you could go and collect food, cook food, vegetables, craft, because they have a strong craft industry in leather and wood. And that activity was very beneficial to the families within the community during COVID, when we were not really kind of free to move around.
Yeah.
So it's also a strong family-based.
Right. So compared to like other cocoa communities, if you will, would you say that Lupino is ahead of the game? Like they're a front runner in Trinidad and Tobago?
Okay, so I could punctuate here by saying within Trinidad and Tobago we have what is identified as 6 agroecological zones across the country where cocoa is produced. Each zone, because it's agroecological, has its own little idiosyncrasies for not climate, but rainfall. They have their own challenges with temperature and those things.
Yeah.
So, and among the 6 agroecological zones, there are what we estimate to be 42 very active communities that are still growing and producing cocoa. Lupino, we would say, definitely is about one of the forerunners within the agroecological communities that are doing cocoa. Lupino, Tamina, and thriving.
Yeah.
The issue then becomes kind of the social and the community structure. Because Lupino, the benefit of Lupino and the advantage to Lupino is a very tight community in a valley. In some of the other communities, it is more, the cocoa farmers are more dispersed.
Right.
So we have other communities that are thriving as well.
And I'm sure
About
some of the
9.
farmers are also related too.
Well, Lopino is typically that. If you move into the community, you realize of a community of just over 2,000 residents.
Okay.
A little over 2,000. The last census was about a little over 2,000, so we work with that number. They are very family oriented. They are deeply related to each other through marriage, through familiar ties. It's an old community. So Lopino presents itself as one of those few places in the country where building community almost is a little easier. With the challenges of family, of course, but almost easier because they know each other.
And it's sort of was already in place. I think what you're doing is to
strengthening those relations.
Correct.
Yeah,
and you provide free advice for their crops as well, and that's great.
Yeah.
Because some of them would maybe not be professional. I would say maybe they inherited it and they learned from.
And yes, and Cocoa Research Center is not the only entity supporting cocoa development and the whole value chain, the whole social value chain within Lopino. We have Cocoa Development Company of Trinidad and Tobago, the Ministry of Agriculture that provides planting material and some support.
That's great.
And of course, Cocoa Research Center, we go in.
Yeah.
And there are other non-profit organizations that go in at different times to support different things that helps the cocoa community, if not directly to the cocoa community.
That's great. And I'm excited, really, genuinely excited to having been there and the great and vast potential it has. And hearing about this week, it really is encouraging. And one last thing I would like to talk about is what are you going to do after this project to maintain the work that you would have put in the project? Would you monitor it every year? Will you continue it in some form or fashion? And what is your next project? Where in Trinidad would be your next project that you're going to do this?
Okay, so I can take the last question first. The next project will depend on the funding that we receive, either directly through this particular grant, if an invitation is made to us, if the funds exist, or through another.
Okay.
And it would be to use Lopino as a template to explore another community. So one of the things that I wanted to share with you is that within one of the questions that you had asked me, within the communities that are active in cocoa, Cocoa Research has identified really about 9 key major cocoa producing communities. Lopino is one of them.
Okay.
Guayco, Tamina, Four Roads in Tamina, Rio Claro, Beach, Vancouver, where you will be meeting Mr. Winkler, right? Moruga, Coromandel and Cedrus, Tabaquite, and then the northern range, which is a wide expanse that includes Santa Cruz and Lopino La Pastora.
What about Tobago?
Tobago, the outreach in Tobago is a little more challenging for us because we have to fly to Tobago, and
the logistics
for Tobago makes it a little more expensive. But our intention is in fact to always include Tobago because we are twin islands.
Yes.
So to answer the question that you asked previously, what is the next step? This is our first formal grant in social entrepreneurship, social sustainability.
Right.
And in all of the communities that I've just described, the 9 key communities, CRC has been working with cocoa farmers for the last, I would say, more than 10 years, more than a decade. And what we plan to do in Lopino, when the project is officially over, is to continue the work that we're doing now. It means that we have to include in Lopino, some of the, or for our work in cocoa, some of the things that we started in Lopino, I, for myself, will continue to do the outreach with the schools, the outreach with the entrepreneurs, the outreach on the historic and tourism aspects. Other colleagues will continue to do the GAIAP outreach together with CDC, TTL, and the ministry to ensure that we deliver the planting material that is best suited to the climate within.
Wherever that is. Or wherever.
Yes.
Thank you so very much. As I bring this interview to an end, one of my recommendations in my thesis was literally teach it in the schools at the primary level, because I grew up in St. James and I never really knew about cocoa. And I'll take this off. I'll end the recording now.